Okay. Good evening, everybody. This is a meeting of the Lunenburg Finance Committee. It is Thursday, March 3rd, and we are at the Bellotta Meeting Room at the Lunenburg Town Hall. Present this evening are myself, Jay Simeone, Tom Gray, and participating remotely is Vice Chair Chris Menard. This evening, Dave Passios is unable to attend. Tom Baelish is tending to a work matter and may be late. And I have not heard from Evan Waters, so hopefully he will be here shortly. But we do have a quorum in accordance with the current flavor of the open meeting law. I will read the preamble. First, I'll call the meeting to order, and then I will read the preamble. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast over the Lunenburg Public Access channel and on Facebook Live on the Public Access Facebook page. The following information is provided for members of the public that would like to participate in the meeting remotely. To participate remotely from a computer, please use the Zoom app and use webinar ID 7927370353, or from a telephone, dial 888-475-4499 and enter webinar ID 7927370353. Please note that the available Zoom option, broadcast, and recordings are for the convenience of the public. If any technical difficulties were to occur, the meeting will continue. If you wish to continue to participate, you must report to this location. Please be aware of this and plan accordingly. The agenda lists all topics which may be discussed at the meeting and are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by the open meeting law. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any announcements? Seeing no hands, is there any public comment? Seeing no hands. Chair's report. My only item to report this evening is yesterday I accepted an invitation to appear on a recorded episode of Fitchburg-Leominster Access Politics, which is a production of FATV, and I will be sitting in on that recording next Wednesday. I don't know when it will be aired yet, but I have been advised that local municipal finance will be amongst the issues that will be discussed amongst other state and national issues. So I will keep you apprised following that recording. Town Manager, Finance Director report. Madam Town Manager. Good evening.
Good evening. How is everyone?
Waters.
Let you get settled. So only a couple of updates. I sent around, Montytuck had distributed their preliminary budget assessment. So this was pretty almost identical to my preliminary budget number. So approximately $2,000 difference in the positive for us. Mass DOT, we received our letter of our allotment for fiscal 23 and for Chapter 90, and that will be $419,940 for fiscal 23. This is a change of about $5,000 difference from the current year. And this is a reimbursement type, so that's different than Chapter 70 or local aid, state, the cherry sheet number. The Neshoba dispatch, that budget has been finalized. That total is now 204,606. Our preliminary budget number was 213,125. So that's a 2.56% increase over last year. Those are the only updates I have
Are you
tonight.
going to circulate a written update on the budget? Like the,
Yes, so,
as we've called it
based-
in years past?
right, I'll have one for next week's meeting. And I hope to have a amended capital plan next week as well, and draft
Excellent.
annual town meeting warrant, what we have so far for articles.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
excellent. Thank you. All right, so tonight's main event are budget presentations for our public safety departments. Listed on the agenda is fire department first. However, we had an active fire in town this evening, and the fire chief is therefore running a little bit late, so we are going to talk with the police department and Chief Gamble first. So with no further ado, you want to move that mic,
Yes,
Chief?
please,
All right.
thank you. You make it sound like a heavyweight.
Yeah, the main event. All right, if you could let us know in the booth if you can't hear the chief, but I'm pretty confident you will be able to, so.
Can you hear me?
Am I allowed to share the screen?
I can hear you loud and clear, and you are allowed to share your screen at your leisure, Amanda.
Okay, while Amanda gets the screen shared and gets the PowerPoint presentation ready, first of all, thank you for having us. I'm honored, again, to present the FY23 budget to the Finance Committee. To say the least, 2021 was a challenging year for me. First year Chief of Police, my first full year. The challenges of COVID-19 and the challenges of the police reform that put some mandates on the department, which has affected our morale, affected our recruiting and retention. But with that being said, our department continues to move forward, and we continue to work through the issues and our mandates that are coming forward. I gave Peter our budget narrative, and I believe he shared it with everybody, so everybody has a copy of it. I'm going to go through the first part fairly quickly and get to the budget part where the money is that we're requesting. At any time during this presentation or PowerPoint presentation I have for you, if you have a question, please stop. You don't have to wait till the end. I'm fine with that, and we'll move on forward.
So in the interest of time, Chief, the way we've done things the last couple of weeks, which I'd like to stick to, is if there is a clarification item, like we don't understand
Sure.
something, we will interrupt you then.
Perfect.
If there's something that's more subjective, we'll wait for that till the end, and we'll have that conversation.
Perfect. Okay. Great. Let me get to the first part. We'll talk about the organization of our police department. We're currently made up of 19 police officers full-time. We have 5 reserve officers, a full-time public safety coordinator, and a full-time desk officer who also serves as a reserve officer also. We're currently broken up into 2 divisions, administrative division and operation division. And we further break it down into bureaus as we get along into the operations. Administrative division, we're responsible for the overall management of the police department. That includes any type of internal affairs investigation, any type of accounting, payroll, scheduling, anything to do with purchasing. As we move down to our patrol, our operating division, we break it up into our patrol sectors. That's made up of 4 different shifts. We have a 7 to 3 shift, a 3 to 11, 11 to 7, and a split shift. Each shift is a sergeant assigned to each shift, plus at minimum 2 patrol officers. As we continue to move down, we have a traffic bureau. Currently, we have 1 officer assigned who is a patrol officer assigned to the traffic bureau. We have an investigative bureau that is currently vacant. As we continue to be fully staffed, we are anticipating a recruit officer graduating in May, end of April, early May, and we're anticipating a new hire that'll be ready to go by then. We will start filling those vacancies. We have a community policing bureau that is made up of an SRO, combination community outreach officer, Most of you know his partner Hank. I think he probably gets more attention than I ever would, which is probably a good thing, I think. But right now it's a combination position, and as we continue to grow, we'd like to separate those positions and start filling those vacancies. Along those notes, just to speak a little bit about our community policing initiatives. Excuse me. Historically, we've always researched and tried to evolve and try to find the best possible techniques that are out there. And we also look for community policing initiatives that builds relationships and partnerships within the community itself. And when you look at this, we've incorporated RAD into this. Our instructors are now RAD Kids certified, so we can have both RAD for adults and RAD for kids. And we'll explain that as we go along and we get into the presentation. The Citizens Police Academy, we were running this on a regular basis, and we started doing it on a biannual basis. With COVID, we had to shelve that for a little bit, and hopefully as things, the restrictions are starting to be lifted, we're able to bring that back this fall. The department is researching the idea and the ability to have a co-response program, and what that entails is our officers partnering with a mental health clinician to respond to people that are in crisis when they're dealing with mental health issues. And part of that is the clinicians are professionals in the field, and we need their assistance. This is going to help us reduce getting people that are in crisis, that need mental health help out of the judicial system and put them into where they need clinical help. Right now, we're in the process of researching that information. We've been in contact with Community Health Link, Luck, and advocates out of Framingham. We continue to look at possible grants from the Department of Mental Health, and we're meeting with advocates this week to continue moving forward with that. Currently, I have one officer assigned to the SIMS program, which is the Critical Incident Management System. It's our tracking system for people with that have opioid abuse or overdose situations. If it's a database-driven system that if anybody overdoses in Central Mass and they are a member of our community, their names are placed into that database, we can research that, follow up with them, and provide them with maybe a recovery coach or some services that them or their family needs. So we continue to move forward with that, and it continues to be successful at this point. With that being said, we'll talk about how we measure our performance, and like any other law enforcement entity, it's usually driven by statistical information that we have out there. The overall goal of our police department is to make the community safe. Assure quality of life issues are addressed on a routine basis that we need. And people that work and live and visit here, they want to feel comfortable, and that's our overall goal. And that's what we're striving for. 2021 was really a very busy year for us. You're going to see quite a jump in numbers. Statistically speaking, it could be as a result of we're starting to come out of the effects of COVID. People are around more, but we continue to be busy. In 2021, our officers answered approximately 26,000 calls, and that's a pretty heavy load for our officers. Out of those 26,000 calls, we ended up with 400 criminal situations, whether it's arrests or criminal summonses. Of those 407 arrest totals, 142 were custody issues, where people were taken into custodies. Motor vehicle accidents were a little bit on the rise. We're at 265 accidents for 2021. The good news in that, the injury has been reduced to 51 as compared to 58 the year before. Motor vehicle stops, officers performed approximately 3,600 motor vehicle stops in 2021. As a result of that, 65 of those stops resulted in physical arrests. Domestic violence related incidents have declined, which we are pleased to see. When things occur, especially in a year like we've dealt with the last 2 years, you worry that these isolated incidences or isolationism you start getting domestic-related incidences. And we have actually decreased in that, which we're very pleased to see. We had 72 incidences in 2021. As a result of those incidences, either arrest or summonses, 22 were issued. Restraining orders, we had 30 issued. Out of those 30, we had 11 violations. Our animal control continues to be busy. She's a single person that takes care of this by herself. She does a great job, answers the bell every time we call her. Good note is that bites are down. We had 3 bites all in all of 2021. Mental health, exactly why we're looking at a co-response with clinicians. Mental health calls are on a rise. We've seen 50 calls last year. Out of those 50 calls, 23 of them were attempted or threat of suicides. And again, the way we started this co-response research is we started doing a special study. And part of that special study was to find out how many calls that we're dealing with actually has a mental health component to it. We just started the study in October. As of January till now, 34 calls in 2022 involved some type of mental health related incident. That's a significant jump in 2 months. And that's what's driving us to get this type of co-response program going. Firearm licensing is relatively steady. 265 licenses were issued last year, renewed. Further down the page, in the narrative, officers generated 1,900 reports that are related to either incident-based or national incident-based reporting system. This information is reported directly to the FBI, and we've been participating in it for the past 20-something years, as far as I'm aware of. As we broke down those numbers and we started doing a comparison look at 2021 and 2020, we've seen a 25% decrease in crimes against persons, and we've seen a 28% decrease in crimes against property. One thing that we noted, though, in the last quarter of 2021, we've seen an uptick in breaking and enterings. Could be a result of people going back to the office. Could be several different factors that are out there.
Does that include break-ins on automobiles?
Yes, correct. When they do crimes against properties and break-ins like that, they combine them all into one. Okay, any questions so far?
Is there,
Okay.
is there an area or town that's seeing more break and entering, or is it?
Not typically. When you talk about those type of crimes, it's crimes of opportunities. They look for neighborhoods, areas where we're not totally there. So it could be anywhere from, we could have the Whalum area being hit, every day 1 week, and then the next week it's on the east side of town. So it's all, I believe, target of opportunities. Anything else?
Continue.
Okay. Budget development. I'm sorry. There is one thing I did want to note. On the screen, you're going to see the total calls. This is for the Neshoba Valley Regional Dispatch District. I recently just received this information from the dispatch supervisor who provided this to all the area chiefs in our district. There was a total of 83,000 calls, approximately. Lunenburg accounted for 31% of those calls. That's an incredible number if you really think about the activity level of our department, of our town, and our community. Motor vehicle stops, we accounted for 33% of those stops. Domestics were at 36%. Motor vehicle crashes were at 20%, which is, I'm glad those are kind of a low number that we see. And the mental health at 6%.
So who are the other communities, just to be clear?
We have Harvard, Lancaster, Berlin, Bolton, and Townsend. And then they dispatch for Devens and DOD.
So Lancaster and Berlin are similar sized towns to Lunenburg. The others are a little
Correct.
bit
Townsend is probably closer to us than those other two towns.
Oh, really? Okay.
Berlin's a little smaller. So Bolton, remember, has 117 coming through
Yeah.
the center of their town, and they also, have regional high school and stuff too, so they're fairly busy. Townsend is more comparable, I think, because of the size of the town
Okay.
population and calls.
Okay. That's
Did you say Devon's is in that?
the voice from above.
Yes, they are. The state police is dispatched out of our center.
Okay, that was going to be my question. Thanks.
Okay. It's still those are high numbers considering the amount of just space and population represented in all those other towns.
Absolutely.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
So the number of calls went up by 25%, which is not so good. But your Group A, crimes against persons and crimes against property both went down about 25%,
Which is a good thing.
which is a very good thing. Where did the uptick, where did you see the uptick actually happen?
We're seeing quality of life issues, motor vehicles, right? Motor vehicle complaints, motor vehicle stops.
Okay.
We're seeing we have an uptick in arrests, whether it's summonses or whether it's physical arrests. We're seeing an uptick in that. And typically, our officers are pretty good with using discretion, whether they're going to put handcuffs on them or issue a summons. Those are the type of things that are going to increase your numbers too.
Okay, so it's nothing specific, it's sort of
Just
just
the
everything else?
overall.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Anything else? Excellent. All right, we'll move right into the budget. So one of the things that, how we develop our budget are some of the key factors that we look at when we develop our budget and after the numbers are given to us. There's several key factors such as collective bargaining agreements, current needs, future needs, and state mandates. We examine our previous fiscal budgets. We look for areas that we need to be adjusted, whether it be reducing costs or reallocating finances to other areas in the budget. One of the examples that we look at is our 10-year hiring plan. Somebody had a question, I think, when the overall budget was presented about how we examine this, and one of the things we do is we look at our staffing level is what is the safest that we can put our officers out there? What is their workload? What is the population of the town? What is the population of the communities around us? Because essentially the communities around us affect us also, right? We have Fitchburg to our west, we have Leominster to our south. They're two medium-sized cities. So those populations really do affect what happens in our town. We also have, a quarter of Route 13 and 2A that come right through our town. That is heavily traveled, that we have to deal with issues that come with traffic on a regular basis. So we take all of that into account and we take a look at where we're at now. What do we think that this growth is, or where this growth is going to be and how we need to grow? And that's how we start formulating a plan. The good thing is this plan was put in place 5 years ago. I'm inheriting it, and we are on track right now, and I think it's a great plan, and, obviously, we continue to evaluate the process and see where we're at, and continue on that. We also examined our hiring process. I know there was some question on how we hire and why we ask for a half year and what's the effect on the year after. What we did was, the vetting process is pretty long for us. Between the background investigations, vetting that person out through background, psychological exam, physical exams, by the time we're done, we're looking at 3 to 4 months down the road. By the time we get that person appointed, we're at the mercy of the training council to see if there is an academy available. And sometimes that's not till December or January. So at that point, we decided to be, fiscally responsible and said it's not realistic to ask for a salary for a full year for an officer. We asked for a half year, so we get that half year paid for, and the full year is the next year. Our operating budget is the first slide that you see up there is our overall budget. I'm sorry, Mr. Beardmore, go ahead.
I just want to clarify, because we had this question last week. We got a detailed line item budget from the town manager this week. I don't know if we've all had a chance to read it. But when you go to public safety or the protection section, the subtotals are, I just want to make sure we're clear here.
Yep.
the requested budget and the 2013 preliminary budget are quite different than the FY23 police budget that we have on the screen here.
So what we've done is we've broken some certain things out, and we had to break out different
Okay.
line items. And if you look at the bottom of the screen there, there's a difference of $51,000. Our total payroll projected, our total budget, operating budget is at 2.57. Go ahead.
Okay.
So when we did this, if you're looking at how it's broken out, like through Munis and how the town manager produces it, we wanted to view it as all of our salaries together. So some of our salaries come out of lockup, come out of our dispatch line. So we put all of the salaries together to try to make it look, just put all of our personnel together on this slide. So the bottom line numbers should still all align.
Okay, but even still, I mean, all that's collected
Yep.
in this, and I'm looking at an FY23 of 2.146 million on the town manager's spreadsheet, and this is 2.577. So,
Are we including the vehicle maintenance? Because that falls under DPW.
that could be why. Okay, so a better question might be, are there any numbers under FY23 police on this screen that are not included in the town manager's recommended budget?
No.
Okay.
Did
There's
that-
no discrepancy here between
No.
FY20, because I understand target is always different than, but is the FY23 police budget that we see here encapsulated in the town manager's recommended budget? Yes. Okay, fine.
Yep.
Just for clarity's sake, because we had some ambiguity last week, so I just want to make sure there's no ambiguity.
We are,
And we break it down further as we go.
as we
through.
go on, you're gonna see how each one of them, and those will match exactly the
Okay.
lines that are in that budget. The other part of that is, the breakdown we did is the way we categorized each, when you're gonna see each section, it's to bring clarity to what you're asking.
Yep, okay.
Because reading line by line to it gets.
No,
gets
it's,
hard.
yeah,
It's-
and
it's
by the
difficult.
way, the type on this is like, I can't read it.
I didn't, do you wanna see mine? I apologize, it's,
So, all right,
you see me wearing glasses
yep,
to it.
yeah, well, yeah, same deal.
All right, so the first part is our salaries, of the operating budget itself. This pie chart right here just shows you exactly how our salaries and our budget is broken down. As you can see, 60% of the salary, or 60% of our budget is salaries, and that's just strictly salaries, contractual. You look at additional salary-related items, that's also contractual, incentive-based items, training. So you can see that a majority of what we're looking for in our budget is based on our salary itself. Next slide. So this is exactly the line items that are broken down. We just separated them out just to make it easier to follow, easier to understand what we're looking at. Each line item you see there is my salary, the lieutenant's salary, the sergeant's salary based on 4 sergeants, a detective salary. There's a note on the side where it says it's funded for FY22. What had happened was, we were allotted this position in FY22, but the money was combined in the patrol line, and it's actually, we broke it out into a separate line, just so for clarity for us also, just so we know, because there is an increase in pay with the detective's rate. So we wanted to make sure we are clear with that. The next line is the patrol officers, that's based on our current staffing level. There's a slight adjustment in there. I believe it's reduced because we did have an attrition this year. The officer has resigned and gone off to another fire department. Public safety coordinator is the next line we have there. The desk officer. Part-time clerical is what we're requesting this year as a new item. As we get further on in the presentation, we'll expound on that and give you a little more information on that. We've asked for an increase in the animal control officer's salary line. Again, she's by herself, she does this work by herself, and she answers the bell every time we call her.
So just to clarify on this, Chief, so that I understand exactly what we're doing with personnel here, particularly with respect to this detective line, is we're getting a new detective, but but we're basically keeping the number of patrolmen the same
Correct.
with that. So basically, we're funding a new position every year as part of the plan. In this case, we're effectively funding a detective position as a new position rather than a patrolman.
Yes, so go back 3 years, or 2 years. So when I got promoted to chief, the detective sergeant moved out of detective bureau and he moved into the lieutenant's position. Historically, we've always had a detective at one point or another, and that was created, that position's always been there. When the detective sergeant came in, we just never backfilled that empty position.
Okay.
So my goal was is that I need supervision. So instead of making a detective sergeant again, that position was becoming a regular patrol sergeant. And then we were gonna go back to that detective position.
Okay. Chris just texted in a question. How many hours is the ACO position? Is that based on an hourly, or is that just a
It's
on-call?
a yearly stipend, she's on call.
So it's not an hourly rate?
No. If we paid her hourly,
It would be pretty bad.
yeah.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Chris, are you good there?
Yeah, it's just this theme of, do we pay our own workers minimum wage or, I know we don't have to, but seems like we should.
I'm sorry? It is in the budget. And that's, this is on the guidance with our town manager, we spoke, and she brought it up to me also, that this is, we need to start addressing that, as an employee, that she was definitely, on the low end of the salary range. And-
Well, the other thing we need to consider there, in my mind, is the replacement value, right? So Kathy's been doing this forever. And she can't do it.
Faithfully,
She
right?
can't do it forever.
Right.
And we need to be at least mindful of when she's not gonna do it, who's gonna do it, and what equipment and all that stuff.
And I think, this is a good start as we're moving forward. We've upgraded her vehicle, we've upgraded her equipment, we just gotta keep moving forward.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff she does out of goodness of her heart too, and I have to remind her that, we need to start doing things differently. So it well deserved for her. Any other questions? Okay. Additional salary-related items. This is about, oh, okay, I'm sorry. The next screen is our additional officer. Again, this is based on a half-year salary. This is based on what we felt was the appropriate thing to do. By the time we got this person vetted out, we got them ready to go. It's right about December or January. The benefit time is calculated on a prorated half-year system. Shift differential, that's a fluctuating thing. We just don't know where that officer will end up after the academy. Some senior officers could want off shifts and he may end up on days, luckily, or however you want to put it. Holiday pay is prorated. Uniform allowance is split in half. That's for the half year. Firearms training is required. When they're done the academy, we bring them back to us and qualify them with us again. We want to make sure that everything is trained properly to our standards. And miscellaneous overtime, that is just based on an average for that year.
So in that, this will be backfilling what is now a vacant patrol position. I'm assuming you're gonna be promoting that detective from the ranks.
Yes. Yeah.
So this position will move into that.
My goal is definitely that. First of all, my goal is to fill that vacant detective position before the end of this fiscal year.
Okay, so you're gonna have a vacant patrolman position as a result of that.
Yes and no, depending on how we organize this and depending on who gets the position. I could be backfilling an SRO position. I could be backfilling another patrol position. It all depends on who gets the position.
Yep, fair enough.
Okay. Okay, additional salary lines, this is 13% of our overall budget. Again, these are contractual-based overtime costs. They're directly related to officers' benefit time. This also involves work performed beyond normal operating hours, which is our investigative field services, community policing, and court overtime. So when you take a look at this also, when we look at community policing, court overtime, IFS overtime, those are based on 5-year averages. We take a look back and see where our officers at, how much they have worked. And I got to tell you, having Amanda is phenomenal, because when she breaks down these numbers, it makes more sense to me. And what we do is we take an average of what they're doing, and that's how we come up with these numbers. Lockup salaries. We had talked about when we reevaluate our budget, or we bring in those key factors, right? We have seen a reduction of how much time we were actually keeping people here when they're under arrest. We have the ability also to use Safekeep at the Worcester County Sheriff's Office, which is a tremendous help for us. No longer do we have to house prisoners from Friday night till Monday morning. We have the ability to bring them to Worcester County. They take care of them. They're the professionals at that. Let them deal with the prisoners. With that being said, we are able to reduce that lockup cost by $15,000. On top of that, we asked part of that $15,000 be reallocated to a part-time clerical position, the rest being returned to the town or taken off our budget. Any questions on that? Nothing from above? Incentives, 8% of our overall budget. Again, these are contractual-based obligations that we have. Incentives total about $206,000. That includes education, longevity, our court prosecutor liaison. It includes holiday pay, uniform allowance. These are all things that are incentive-driven. It's by contract.
So these incentive numbers, I understand they're driven by contract. Are they capped to the numbers that are in the budget, or not?
Education, each one of them has a different negotiable item in the contract.
So some of them are capped, some of them are not? Okay.
Everything besides holiday pay on this particular slide is capped.
It's capped.
Okay.
It's negotiated into the contract.
Okay.
And that's how it's.
So when the money's spent, it's spent, and we wait till
Yep,
next year?
when it's done, it's done. Training. Okay. This is a pretty big narrative that you're seeing, because there's a significant importance in training with our officers in our department, and I think with any law enforcement entity. It's about 4% of our overall budget. This is in our training hours, and our training requirements are mandates that are in accordance with the Municipal Police Training Council, MPTC, and the newly created post. There's some things that are mandated from us, a minimum of 30 hours of in-service training, but that is given to us by the MPTC. They provide that training, Post provides that training. The additional hours that we have to provide is on our own, and that includes de-escalation training, firearms training, less than lethal weapons. Anything outside that realm, we have to provide that training. Rightfully so. I mean, those guys work for us. We want to make sure that they're to our standards again. Currently, we have 7 use of force instructors, whether it's in the fields of firearm, de-escalation, or less than lethal weapons that we have available to us. Some of the things that are required upon us now, which it's kind of trying to look for some good words on how to say this, but de-escalation training has been a part of law enforcement ever since I've been in this profession, and I'm sure you can find people way before my profession that'll tell you the exact same thing, that de-escalation has been a part of our training and a part of what we do forever. We're mandated to do these trainings, and rightfully so, and we'll continue to move forward. With that being said, in 2021, our officers were involved in 9 use of force incidences, as compared to 10 in 2020, which is a fairly low number, but that's what we want. That's what we want to accomplish.
Can you define that, Chief? The use of force?
Use of force is any time an officer has to put his hands on a suspect, right? Whether it's hands-on, whether it's the use of a less than lethal weapon, whether it's the use of a deadly force application, whatever it may be, that's considered use of force. Prior to any use of force application, our officers each and every time have used some type of de-escalation. So I'm proud to say that these officers take this serious. And it's at that last moment that they have to go hands-on, regardless of what type of force application they're using. So that's a good thing. That means the training's working. These officers are attentive to that, and that's what we want. And that's the type of department we want. Professional development, there's a couple things that we did last year that I felt was very important to bring to our department. One of them was called Effective Leadership Through Emotional Intelligence, and it's empathy training. We invited people from the town hall, and we brought in an outside trainer to do this, a full day training of emotional intelligence. It was well received, it was great training. The second training we did is I have 2 officers that are trained in, it's called Mental Armor, Resilience, and Wellbeing Skills for First Responders. In the climate of the country right now, or prior to, this year and last year, what we've been seeing, and the general feeling of law enforcement around the country, we have to give our officers some coping skills. How do they deal with this? Because sometimes it's just that press or the negative influence that they're seeing from the outside. And we want to make sure that our officers are healthy, their mental health as well. We want them to have a long career with us, with our department. We want them to be able to be productive and make sure that they're taken care of. So that's one of the reasons why we sent 2 officers to be trained as instructors, brought them back, well-received training. So we are doing some great things with our training. We have our traffic officer who currently is an accident reconstruction investigator. He completed the training last year. He is also signed to the Central Massachusetts Law Enforcement Coalition recon team, the SEMLEC team. So part of that professional development training, we sent our traffic officer out to get that type of training. We have 2 programs that are really community-based, RAD and RAD Kids. I have one of the instructors sitting with me controlling the computer, and she's going to give you a quick, brief overview of what RAD is and what RAD Kids are, because we have upcoming classes that we would like people to attend.
Sure. Can you hear me from here, or should I move closer?
Yeah, we can. Why don't you introduce yourself, though, because I don't think everybody knows you.
Sure. Amanda Moore, I'm the Public Safety Coordinator over at the Police Department. As the Chief just said, I'm one of the RAD and RAD Kid instructors. So RAD is a self-defense class for women. We are currently running a program at the TCP gym starting this coming Tuesday, and we do still have some openings. It's a fantastic class for skills for women of all ages. That class is running for 4 consecutive weeks with full simulation if you choose to do it at the end. It's a really empowering class to learn some great skills. RAD Kids, we're really excited to start our first class for RAD Kids in April. We'll have some more information coming in about that, but for the RAD Kids, there is a self-defense component to it, but it's also a full curriculum of teaching them awareness and their surroundings and just different safety measures, everything down to hopefully incorporating some fire safety into that. It's a really great program, so we're excited to start offering these classes in the spring and the fall, moving forward every year.
It's awesome. If people want information about that, they can get that on the website,
Yep,
Facebook
on the website,
page.
right now, there is, on the police page, there's the sign-ups for the spring class that's starting again. That first one is starting next week, and we'll be posting the information for the sign-ups for the kid class starting in the next 2 weeks.
Okay, good. Thank you very much.
So part of our training is we want to make sure that we collaborate with the community, bring some training and bring some instruction to the community members too. And we're really proud of the RAD program. I think it's a great class to empower women. It's a great class for kids, and it's a way for us to give back to the community. I don't know if we mentioned this. It's free of charge. Anybody can attend, sign up, and we'll get you going.
Chris asked, what's the ages for the kids?
Our first current class will be ages 8 to 12. We can run a younger class, but we haven't done that yet.
Great.
And for kids, it is all children. It's not just restricted to girls like
Girls.
the adult class is just women.
Good.
All right, so part of the training budget is in-service and specialized training, firearms and taser training. Taser is one of our less than lethal tools that we have. Training fees, any costs that we have to send instructors out, and firearm supplies. Any questions on that?
So I do have a subjective question. I'll take my privilege as chair to jump into subjective questions here. So training is obviously a topic that, you know, has gotten training for police officers is a topic that has gotten national attention over the last couple of years for obvious reasons. You know, I think we in Lunenburg pride ourselves in the professionalism of our police department, and I don't think anybody would argue with that. If you had unlimited funds, if you had another $110,000 to spend on training, could you spend that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can guarantee you we could spend that. Training is something that is important to every law enforcement entity, but if you said, you know, Chief, I'm going to give you another $110,000, we'd increase our use of force training, we'd increase our de-escalation training, we would provide even more training to the community. We're looking at different avenues. We provide some training to the school with drills for active shooter. We want to expound on that training also, and we're planning on certain things that, you know, that we want to get out there, and we want to start doing different trainings. We had started, prior to COVID, we had started doing some active shooter training here at Town Hall and other entities within the town. So not only does that training benefit our officers, but we can bring the training back to the community.
Right.
So that's, you know, absolutely. So you're offering another 110, is that what
I'm
I'm
not,
hearing?
I'm not, but obviously not, but I think that, you know, there are certain areas where, that are sensitive topics, right? And
Absolutely.
I think that we need to be aware of, you know, in some cases, it would have been I didn't know the answer to your question, right? You could have just as easily told me, no, we're full up, like, you know, we're tapped out on what
Right.
we can do. We don't have the hours, we don't have the manpower, we don't have whatever, right? And if that was the case, then that was the case. But, you know, if there are dollars available, if this is something that the community wants to invest in, if they want to come to a public hearing at the end of the month, these are topics that I think, you know, we at least need to be aware of.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100% on that. That's absolutely right. And, you know, not only that, it's the ability to think outside the box with training too. You know, do some different training that is going to bring law enforcement into a better light, for lack of better words,
Yep.
right? To put us into mainstream media and say, hey, look, you know, those things that happen outside of our control is an anomaly, right? We have a professional department. We pride ourselves on different things we do in the trainings that we do.
Well, I think hopefully we've come full circle on some of those
I hope so.
issues from a couple of years ago. I think,
agree.
you know, the president's speech the other night, I think, was evident of that as well.
I agree. I hope.
To ask the question a slightly different way.
Sure.
Is there any sort of training that you feel like you're having to cut out specifically because you're limited to the amount of funding that you have for training? Like, which is the one that just kind of didn't make the cut if there was one?
No, we haven't
Okay.
cut anything out. We
Okay.
try to make it happen regardless. If I have to take some overtime money and invest it in training, then I'll do that. But we don't cut training
Okay,
at this point.
great.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, purchase of services and supplies, pretty straightforward. Total of $31,000. I know Mr. Beardmore is going to have a question when I get down to a certain motorcycle lease program, but we will get to that in a second. A couple of things I want to highlight is the printing. We actually reduced that and put it into our office supplies. Part of the reason is we cut out some printed books that we can actually get them online. It's a lot cheaper. We reduced the money in our patches and our badges. We're pretty good right now. We don't need to keep the amount we had in there. We just recently purchased everybody a brand new badge with our identification numbers on it, so it makes it fairly easy to stay with those badges. And going down now to the police lease, motorcycle lease, one of the things, and I'll really get into this as we get on into the slides, but we're looking for $5,000 for a one-year lease for a motorcycle. We've asked for $8,000 increase in the K-9 budget, and that's going to allocate some money to the comfort dog also. And again, we have another slide dedicated to that. I'll get right to that. Any other expenses that are on there are just straightforward is what we've been looking at. Any questions on those? Our next line is our other expenses. This is injury leave. Knock on wood, we haven't had to use that, and I'm hoping to continue on that path. I'm anticipating a retirement this year. I've been informed that one of my officers will be retiring in July or sometime soon after that. I want to make sure that we account for whatever buyout that we have in there. And this is based on whatever accrual he has for vacations, vacation personal time, right, and holiday time. That's up to that point.
Does that retirement, you said it's a buyout of the,
Yeah,
okay, so
yeah.
it's not something that would reoccur every year
No,
after?
no. When an officer retires, whatever benefits he has left, we have to
Okay.
pay for those benefits. All right. Any more questions on that? Vehicle maintenance. Peter likes my used car lot out back, he had said. I told him it's no longer there.
Told me you weren't gonna bring.
It's a preemptive strike. We have 13 vehicles. We have a boat, we have a UTV, we have 2 trailers plus a boat trailer. And I've given everybody a breakdown of what our vehicles are and how we use them. Based on that, our vehicle maintenance is $67,000. Purchase of services is $9,000. Supplies at $18,000, and fuel charges at $40,000. One of the things I will point out is that we are currently purchasing hybrid Ford Explorers, and it's actually really starting to help us. I was only able to pull out a 1-month study just because we haven't had them in service that long. One of the hybrids compared is a 3-person cruiser compared to a cruiser that only has 2 officers attached to it. We saved 65 gallons in 1 month, which is astronomical. And now if we continue on that path, the gallons is savings that we're looking at is going to be incredible. Any questions on that? I'm sorry, I'm just waiting.
No,
Oh,
we're good.
okay.
No,
All right,
just
good.
keep going if we
All
don't.
right, very good.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
New budget requests. So this is where some of the items I told you I'd expound upon a little bit, the part-time clerical position, a motorcycle lease, and the canine comfort dog.
Chief, I apologize. If you go back a slide
Sure.
to the regional dispatch.
Oh,
So, sorry, the questions are delayed here a second.
Okay.
We've been told to anticipate, we've been made aware that there's a town that's dropping out of regional dispatch. And we're not seeing a substantial increase this year in regional dispatch, but is there any indicators that that might change going forward as the size of participation in the regional dispatch changes, or
Not at
do we
this
know?
moment. Right now, just for clarification, I'm the chairperson of the operations board for Neshoba Valley for all the area chiefs, fire and police chiefs. So I meet with the director on a regular basis, and the information that she told him, myself and the town manager, is that 911 state grant has made us whole for Townsend pulling out. So the district has been made whole. Moving forward, the amount that was given to us this year is going to remain that way. Whether that comes to fruition next year, I wouldn't have a definite answer for you until those budgets come out. But I was pleased to hear that instead of 213,000, it's now at 204, with the assistance that we're getting from the
And
state.
our allocations are not based on call volume.
Correct. Thank God. I would, absolutely, because if that was the case, I think we'd be having a
Be
different
going the way of
conversation.
Townsend, yeah, exactly.
But yeah, that's, it's not guaranteed at this point, but I can tell you that we would push hard to keep it.
Okay, thank you very much. Apologize for
Yep.
pulling you back here.
No, perfect.
Are
Okay.
Sorry, Jay.
Are you looking to recruit any additional towns into the dispatch?
The admin board And the ops board, we do actively look. It's just a matter of finding a town that's within our district or within our region that's willing to come into our dispatch district. And if they're willing to jump into a regional situation, I mean, that's just the bottom line. Would we like to have that? Absolutely. It continues to reduce our costs, but remember, it's going to increase the workload that dispatch center is going to encounter with another town coming in or community coming in. We're not sure if any towns are interested yet, but there might be.
Wasn't there something about a law requiring 2 dispatchers be on call at this, to handle dispatch, generating the need to go regional?
I think he's looking at his EMD,
Emergency medical dispatching,
someone had to be able to EMD calls.
yeah. I would defer that to Chief
Okay.
Sully on those questions about whether you need 2 dispatchers or not for that. I believe that there was a mandate coming down. I am not sure that it was actually implemented.
Okay.
With a regional dispatch center, you're always going to have 2 to 3 on. Right? You're not going to have to worry about that type of situation.
Okay,
Anything else?
let's get into clerical.
All right. All right, new budget request. Part-time salary clerk, part-time clerk for the public safety coordinator.
I'm sorry, did we miss a slide? Did we skip a slide?
It was just the overview. So
Okay, all right.
That's just the
fair enough. All right.
overview, and then I'll go right into them. The last time we had a part-time clerical person with the public safety or with the police department was prior to fiscal 2004. During that time, we had 13 officers. Accordingly, our town has grown, the police department has grown. We are now at 18 full-time officers. With that being said, the workload has significantly increased on our public safety coordinator. This includes day-to-day tasks that I give her, unfortunately. There's benefit tracking, accounts payable, receivable, payroll. There's warrant articles that she has to get in there. The workload just keeps piling up and piling up. What we're requesting is just to alleviate some of that workload on a part-time basis. And what that will do is allow me to utilize Amanda to help me with grant writing, to help me with research and development, help me with community engagement. There's some things out there that we need to go after, and I just got to be honest with you, I just can't do it all alone. And I do need that assistance. There's a lot of programs out there that we can be researching, that we can do a lot of research and development and bring it into our department. And it's just the ability to have another person or another set of eyes to take a look at this. Whether we get them or not, that's another story, but at least we have the ability to start applying for these and start going after some stuff. The motorcycle. It's a tool to be utilized by our traffic officer. It is definitely a tool that we see a need for, that our traffic officer can get to areas where typically a cruiser can't get to run traffic enforcement. One of the biggest complaints in town, and I'm sure you all know, is constantly it's the traffic complaints. Whether it's speeding or erratic operations or the intersection at Walmart, there are constant traffic complaints. This is a tool that the traffic officer can utilize. Some of the benefits that we can see, just it reduces the life of a cruiser also. The money that you're looking at is minimal at $5,000 a year for a lease. There is no commitment. If the program doesn't work, we cut it off next year at 12 months. The other benefits that we see with this, it's a great community relations tool. We use it for parades, whether it be the senior motorcade, homecoming, funeral escorts. There are events that we call in SEMLEC, the Central Mass team, and we ask them to bring bikes up here. Last year we did the senior motorcade with that, the homecoming parade with those motorcycles. And it's a great recruiting tool. We spoke about how hard it is to the morale and get officers here, the recruitment part of it. This is a great recruiting tool along with We've increased our budget in our K-9.
Chief,
Yep.
let's just get into a
Go
little
ahead.
detail on the motorcycle.
Sure.
Will this require any specialized training for an officer?
Yes, absolutely. It's a 40-hour basic motorcycle training, police motorcycle training. The company that we're looking to lease the motorcycle from has one of the top training things in the country that we would utilize, and that would come out of our training budget.
Okay. And is the officer that I'm sure you got somebody in mind for this, or is he already a licensed motorcycle operator?
Yes, yeah, he has a motorcycle. He's my traffic officer. That's the first and foremost, is that motorcycle will be used by the traffic officer.
And can you talk a little bit about the difference between a motorcycle and a marked cruiser when it comes to traffic enforcement?
Sure.
What's the difference?
I think the motorcycle allows you to get to areas where they're off the beaten path, that we can do traffic enforcement. Obviously, our goal is, the overall goal is to slow cars down, make sure that they're operating safely. But obviously, we have to enforce these rules too. So it gets them off the side of the road, puts them in areas where that cruiser's not sitting right on the road, right? Or parked in an area that's in a parking lot, sideways or whatever it may be. Gives them a better vantage point. It allows him to get to areas in town where there's significant traffic complaints easier. So I think those are the benefits we see.
Is this motorcycle program going to be, is this something, it says no obligation to continue after the first year. Is this a pilot program, or is this something you're going to continue, this is something you,
If this is a viable resource for us, I would continue this.
how-
I see it being successful.
so you're going to measure this and and if it makes sense to continue, continue. If
It
it
makes
doesn't
sense.
for some reason, then, okay.
Yep, correct, absolutely. And to be quite honest, I think it's going to be very successful.
If I lease a car, I have a lot of restrictions and requirements on that.
Say that again?
If I lease a car, I have a whole bunch of restrictions and requirements on all of that. How different is it to lease a police motorcycle? I mean, what are there at $5,000? It seems like nothing. So are you limited to like 10 miles a month, basically?
There is no restrictions. I actually have the contract here. There is absolutely no restrictions. We're required to maintain it, obviously. We're required to have insurance on it, and that's about it.
What if it gets?
Make the 2 payments and we're good to go.
Okay, that's really simple.
There's no mileage restrictions or nothing. This program was formed in 1988 from the New England Police Vehicle Leasing Company.
The residual value on those vehicles is really good. I'm a motorcyclist, and I
will.
they're always for sale, but they get a good price for them.
Okay.
I will say this, that we actually looked into seeing what it would cost to actually purchase it. A used motorcycle from American Harley in Lumsden was over $17,800, I think. And that was a fairly used motorcycle. So they do retain their value.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right. Hank, and again, everybody's going to smile when they see Hank on the picture. I mean, he just relieves a lot of stress for everybody. He's a great dog. He does bring a lot to the table. Officer McNamara volunteers his dog on a regular basis. He does so out of the goodness of his heart. We felt that it was necessary to start incorporating some of the costs of Hank into our budget. That's why we're requesting an additional $3,000 in that realm. The picture you see there is Hank at the state capitol. Hank was one of the first comfort dog programs in our state, and he was requested to the capitol after the insurrection to provide some debriefing, to be at the debriefing for those officers down there. And I applaud Officer McNamara for going down there and doing that. He was invited again this year for the anniversary for the debriefing, so that tells you a lot about Hank. See, nobody has questions about Hank. I mean, you just put a picture up there and it's like, all right.
I'm trying to save my subjective comments, but yeah, Chief and I have talked 3 or 4 times in the last couple of months about a number of these things, and you know, I think he knows, when push comes to shove, I would trade cruises for dogs. Like, I'm a huge supporter of both of these canines, and
Yeah, I agree, and they're worth their weight in gold, absolutely. All right, we'll move, any questions on that, on the operating budget itself? Okay, let's move on to our capital purchases. We're looking for a new F-150, a new cruiser because of the growth of the department, and Jerry is at the end of his cycle, and we're looking to retire him next year. So the first capital program that we have up there, the purchase that we're looking for, is to replace Jerry. Jerry has served us well since 2014. Jerry does an outstanding job. He's still very, very active at this point, but you can tell he's starting to slow down. We put the total cost on the slide at $24,250. The next slide is a breakdown of what the actual cost is for the dog. I spoke to Mr. Beardmore about this, and this is the actual breakdown of what we're looking at. This is the closest estimate that we can come up with. It's just because there's just so many unknown factors that go into this, especially with the cost, the rising cost of product, of fencing, of dog houses, to build the dog houses. So what we did was we broke it down to the closest we could. That $8,500 is a quote from the breeder where Jerry came from. I got a signed quote from them, and hopefully we maintain that price. The initial training through Boston Police Department is $2,000 or a comparable facility. If we're able to get into the state police program in the fall, if they have openings, I believe it's free of charge. Hopefully, you know, we'll try to get something like that. If we are unable to get in, and we'll work towards getting to those, I've done some research, and to get a canine certified outside these two entities, anywhere from $9,000 to $15,000. So I think when we look at the cost of what we would pay BPD and or state police, it's a no-brainer. The in-service training for the handler at $500. Total cost all in for outdoor kennel, doghouse equipment at the handler's home, $4,000. That includes the fencing, water bowls, whether they're heated, fans, bedding, anything that dog requires at the handler's home. The next line down is miscellaneous training and handling equipment, collars, leashes, bite sleeves, exercise balls. These are all training requirements that the dog would use on a regular basis. Bulletproof vests, that price we increased a little bit to $900 just because of the market price of vests that we just purchased have increased, so it anticipated canine vests would increase also. Jerry's going to be in service until this dog is ready, so we're going to incur the cost of food, vet care, and insurance out of the article for capital. The reserve contingency at 10% is based on what the Stanton grant was back in 2014. Some of the call-outs, and I know this is some information that's nice to know and nice to have that goes along with the canine. In 2018, we had 18 call-outs. In 2019, 21. In 2026, we had 6 call-outs. In 2021, we had 2. So when we look at the trend, it almost looks like we're not getting the dog. It's not being used as much as we thought. But look at those 2 years. Those are COVID years. There's a lot of things that are going on that wouldn't require the canine to be called out. I will say this, as of today, we've had 4 call-outs already. 1 today, this morning, and involved a chase with a suspect who was wanted, a fugitive. We worked with the state police, our patrol units, and Jerry. They tracked him for over 45 minutes, tracked him down, arrested him successfully. Great job by everybody that was there. That's a plus for Jerry. We've had a call out for a B&E, that we had a major B&E that Jerry came out and tracked. We also had our own officer involved in a pursuit. We called off the pursuit. The party crashed his car in Fitchburg, took off running. Jerry tracked the person, successfully take that person in custody too. So great win all around. Questions on that?
So the only other expense, and I understand that it's covered in other areas, but I just want to highlight it for everybody, is that we're going to be sending an officer to training for a period of time to do this training, who we're going to be paying while they're there, and we'll be backfilling with somebody overtime or whatever, I assume, right?
Yes and no. The way our patrol staff is functioning now and how we're staffed, we may be able to, we may not have to fill every shift. This becomes a specialty position, even though he's in a patrol function. So there may be some shifts that we don't necessarily have to backfill.
Okay, good. But there's some
Absolutely.
dollar value.
There is some dollar value, there is some cost. The training costs, obviously, that will come out of our training and overtime budget.
Okay. Yeah, I think this is, my, and this is just personal for me. I had an elderly relative many years ago, demented, who went missing in southern New Hampshire. And the state police in New Hampshire, brought in canines and helped to find him. When we talk about our population in Lunenburg, which is, about a third senior citizens, I think that this is one of those services that we owe it to ourselves to be able to be prepared for all scenarios.
Absolutely, I agree.
And this is one of them. This is, it's like having an ambulance,
Yeah, yep.
And I think it's money extremely well spent, as well as all the additional benefits that you outlined, just
Right.
the value of having a dog around the building, is I think probably worth it.
Absolutely, and Jerry is a dual-purpose canine also, so those searches too are a part of his training and what he does. So it's not just searches for a suspect, it's, he's gonna search for missing persons also. And Jerry is, I can tell you, Jerry's one of a kind. He's got a great disposition when he's not in working mode. Very sociable canine, he's absolutely wonderful.
Good.
Okay. The next capital purchase is a marked cruiser. It's a addition to our fleet right now. It's a hybrid Interceptor Ford. It's base price at $42,000 plus $20,000 for upfitting, and we would be looking at a total estimate cost of $62,000. The price that we priced it out as is based on a 3% increase of what the current value of those vehicles are. Whether that it comes true in the fall, I'm just not sure. The two cruisers we ordered last fall, I haven't even seen them. They're not even being built yet, so kind of at a standstill with that. Any questions with the Mark Cruiser?
What does this put you at for hybrids versus non-hybrids at this point?
I like the hybrids because of the cost savings with the fuel charge.
No, I'm just saying the number of hybrids that you have versus the number of.
We have, currently, we have 4 hybrids. 1, 2, 3, 4.
This would make 5, or this
This
would?
would make 5.
Okay.
There's currently 12 or 13 vehicles in
Correct,
inventory.
correct.
It was
Okay.
they're listed in the narrative.
So we're closing in at 50%.
Yeah, we're getting there.
We'll start cycling out the Chevy
Right,
Tahoes. We'll start selling those off.
And 3 of those.
We think we need to add money to this because buying a car at MSRP is almost no longer feasible, never mind. They're adding $5,000-$10,000 to vehicle sticker prices. Is that just not a,
These are state
the thing
contracts,
is-
right?
State contract.
These are state contracts.
Correct. These are bidded off of state contracts, so we're able to get the best possible price out there. I think I would rather stay with what we have right now until we know exactly what's going on, and then, if need be, I can come back to special town meeting. I just don't think it's, again, it's a guessing game, depending on what's going on with how cars are being built, the supply chain, and everything else.
Given the issues that you have right now with getting the cars that we thought we were buying a year ago,
Yeah.
your mileage totals are gonna go up pretty much across the fleet, right? With the exception of the spares, like it's.
Correct, because they're obviously spares, they're gonna be used limited. Correct, and then, once we get those new cars, to replace them, and then you're putting low mileage cars into a spare fleet, you're kind of dealing with a double-edged sword at that point. I think we're at the whim of when these cars are going to be built and at the whim of the manufacturers. I hope that we're scheduled to start being built on 22nd of March. I'm hoping that stands true. I just can't guarantee it. Along that note, this is this goes along with the used car joke. We sold off 3 used vehicles as we started rotating cars out. We threw municipal bid and we ended up with 13.3 for the 3 cars. And one of them was pretty rough in old shape and still made some decent money off it. So that's good. And I think that's a pretty good thing that we're doing as we rotate cars into the spare, take those spares, sell them off. And then we don't have to maintain them. Next request is a Ford F-150 police responder truck. Right now, currently, the department doesn't have a true multi-purpose vehicle, or utility vehicle, I should say. Currently, we have 2 trailers that we tow with the SUVs, and it's not ideal. We don't have a true 4-wheel drive vehicle. Our SUVs right now are considered all-wheel drive, and we actually outfit them with snow tires to make them better in the winter. This is a vehicle that we see a need for. We provide a couple services with this. In the wintertime, we go and help some people in need, the elderly population, by either snow blowing or shoveling. We're able to transport equipment with that. We're also able to, it would allow us to put additional emergency equipment in there for road closures, inclement weather, stuff that we need that typically we would have to call in somebody to take care of that. And this, we could use that pickup truck to throw that equipment in, get it out to the scene, and get that scene secured, however it may be. Also, currently, we have 2 trailers that we tow with right now that carry our equipment. Those trailers are fairly large. One is a trailer that we use for firearms, and we have a ton of equipment that we have to bring to the range on a regular basis. The other trailer is, as you can see in that picture up on the screen, that is a utility trailer that we use to transport the UTV. The reason why we put that picture up there is to show the stress that those current SUVs are under when we put that trailer on. We also have a boat that we trail around to the different lakes in town. We do patrols in the summer. This would allow us to tow that boat in a safe manner. Currently, the SUVs right now are not rated to tow these type of trailers at this type of weight. They're hybrids. They're not designed for that. We put $20,000 worth of equipment into those SUVs. They don't have a braking system that allows for these size trailers. The last thing I want is that trailer pushing right through the back of an SUV and not only damaging that SUV, but damaging equipment that we have. We also, with the equipment that we tow, it adds a lot of stress and use and wear of that. I don't want to take a line vehicle out of service to tow trailers or to tow the boat, or to do different things with it at that point. Okay. Questions?
Would this truck be used for towing exclusively, or would it be used for patrolling and
We
other
use
things?
patrol, and I think I explained this, Peter and I had a conversation. I don't feel comfortable buying things and not using them. This vehicle will be out on patrol every once in a while, whether it's my lieutenant or one of my sergeants out there using the vehicle. I don't want it as a prisoner transport. That's not what it would be designed for. Inclement weather, it'll be out there. We're going to put it out there, and that's one of the patrol vehicles that'll be out there. So it's not going to just sit there. I don't believe in that either.
One of the things that we had mentioned by not making it a prisoner transport vehicle, not having the cage in the back, we can put 4 officers in that truck. So if you need to get multiple people to, say, a search and rescue scene or a firearms training, and we could put 4 or 5 officers in one vehicle versus having the entire back be a cage for prisoners.
We have cages in all of our other vehicles.
Yes, except for the unmarked. My car, the lieutenant's got a note, and the detective, no cages.
Is this going to be the hybrid F-150?
Not at this point. It'll be a regular vehicle, regular gas-powered vehicle.
And why wouldn't we go with the
I don't know
hybrid?
if Ford F-150 came out with a hybrid.
They actually
to be
do,
honest,
but I don't think it's a police car
I
yet.
don't think so. I'm not, I couldn't answer that.
This is a police interceptor. This
Correct.
is a,
It's specifically designed for law enforcement. I really, I could check. I just don't have that answer.
so, Chief and I have probably spent a couple hours talking about this issue over the last couple of months. And I can't say definitively that I'm opposed to this, but it's, of all the things in the police department budget or the request from the capital plan, this is one that kind of raises a flag for me. And there are a number of reasons for it. The first is, well, if we're doing okay right now, why do we need something new? And I recognize the fact that we're not necessarily, we're doing okay, we're not necessarily doing it right. And I think that that's something that, to the chief's credit, he needs to bring this to our attention and request it. That's his duty, to his team and to the town. But these trailers are getting to where they need to go one way or the other right now. And this is a pretty expensive piece of equipment. It's $68,000, and it's $68,000 of equipment that we will need to maintain and replace when it gets old and it's no longer useful. So we're adding, we currently have, I think, 12 vehicles. I think we're going to 13. We have 13 now. We'll go to 14. That means we're at 14 vehicles. And we're replacing 3 cruisers next year, starting next year in perpetuity on the capital plan, I believe.
No. 2.
2 next year? Okay, I thought I was seeing a straight 3 out.
We've broken it, that's an old capital plan that you may have seen.
Okay.
The updated capital plan is 2. And it goes 2, 2, 2, and I believe there's a year that's 3, but that's down the road.
Okay, well, fair enough. I stand corrected. What I think I read from the capital plan that came out previously was 3. Nevertheless, we're replacing vehicles, and this is a vehicle that will need to be replaced. The other thought that I had on this, and I would welcome the chief to comment, is if this is a vehicle that is capable of patrolling, and we have other vehicles that don't have cages, like the chief's vehicle, the lieutenant's vehicle, the detective's vehicle, why can't this serve that purpose as well as tow when we need to tow? Because, none of those 3 vehicles that I just mentioned are in use full time. So, I think that that's a reasonable discussion to have. Do we need to maintain 14 vehicles when we can maintain 13? And I do this, ultimately, we're probably going to buy this thing. I understand that. And if we don't buy it this year, the chief has assured me he'll bring it next year.
Year after.
But, but I do think that we need to be, conscious of our inventory, inventory is expensive. And, this is a lot of money.
So,
Seems to me with the picture on the bottom right, you have the potential of being in an unsafe position related to towing, not only for the people towing, but anyone that's passing or around the item being towed.
correct. In that, obviously, that trailer is twice the size of the SUV. Let me comment on a couple things that you brought up, and also a comment on Mr. Menard's observation is correct. Have we been getting along just fine? Yes and no. That trailer is fairly new. The UTV is fairly new. So this has only been around for the last couple of years. At times during firearms, some of my officers use their own truck. To me, that's not the ideal situation. They shouldn't have to do that. That's training that we have to provide, and we do. Can we use it as an alternative vehicle for my car, the lieutenant's car, the detective's car? Absolutely. I don't deny that, but we already have those cars in fleet. I'm not going to turn around and, all right, we'll put it on municipal bid and receive less money than they're worth at this point. I don't think that's the ideal situation either. And you're absolutely right. I'm gonna bring this up every year, until somebody says, yeah, you're right, this is what we need. And we've had this discussion before, we may disagree, but I see the need, and I do believe that this is a need for our police department. I see this being used quite often. I see it as a benefit to our police department. It will help us be a little more efficient when we start doing trainings and we start getting these trailers towed. And you got to remember, we have a boat that we have to get into the water, that we do patrols, and that we're called on quite often to patrol either Lake Shirley or Whalen Lake. I don't want that SUV at the bottom of Whalen Lake, I really don't. There again, there's $67,000 that we're gonna have to fish out of there just because the braking system is not designed for stuff like that. Some of the things that you should be aware of, I did pull out some specifications for those hybrids. The towing max load is 5,000 pounds. That black trailer you're looking at right there is rated at 5,100 pounds. Our firearms trailer, empty, is rated at 3,000. The boat weighs 1,800 pounds, and the trailer is at 2,700 pounds. So, I mean, we're in a situation here where, okay, can we put them on the SUV? Okay, we take that chance.
What is the, I'm glad you looked up those stats, those towing capacities, because as it turns out, they're all kind of close to the limit, except for the fully loaded utility trailer.
Correct.
With the UTV. Is the UTV housed permanently in that trailer?
No,
or-
no. We put it in the garage until we need it.
So I guess that begs the question, why are we trailering a 3,000-pound UTV with a 5,000-pound trailer?
I didn't buy the trailer. I don't know how those work, but I know that it was designed for that UTV. So that's my take on that, and that's how it was purchased, because it would hold that equipment. And that was my understanding of it. So as far as I know, that trailer is rated for that UTV. UTV is 3,100 pounds, so it'll fit, you know.
Yeah, but that's, I mean,
Correct me if I'm wrong, you still have 2,000 pounds left to go, right?
no, but with respect to the 5,000-pound limit that you have.
Right? I'm sorry.
On the existing equipment, right? If we were to look at your need, it's strictly at your towing needs, I understand that this thing is going to address other needs. But if we were to look strictly at your towing needs, we could take the boat and we could take the firearms trailer, and that would fall right about at your capacity for your existing SUVs. You've got a UTV that weighs 3,100 pounds that is being trailered by a trailer that weighs 5,100 pounds. I've trailered a lot of equipment in my life. I can't think of any time that the trailer has exceeded the weight of the thing that it's towing, of the thing, whatever's inside of it, with the exception of a camper, right? So it strikes me as one of those things, like, it seems like we're spending $68,000 to tow a $5,000 trailer that we don't actually need. I'm just, again, it's my job here to be a little bit skeptical, and it just strikes me as one of those things.
Those are good questions. Now, remember, when this was purchased, we were using gas-powered vehicles. We had Tahoes, right? The older model Explorers may have been able to handle that.
And those things are rated at about 10,000 pounds.
Right, so you have two different vehicles. We're moving towards hybrids. We see the value in hybrids. Is it a drawback? Absolutely, but it's, to us, it's the smarter choice is to move towards hybrids as our fleet, right? Now we need that utility vehicle.
Is it possible to upfit one of those three vehicles that are currently being used by yourself or the lieutenant or anybody to turn those over into a traditional, more patrol car, and then cycle around to have, as kind of Peter's suggestion, to have the truck
We
go
could.
to?
Again,
That way we wouldn't have to sell the
You're
vehicle.
looking at $20,000 at least to upfit one of those two SUVs to that point.
Are any of those the hybrids, or are those?
The lieutenant's car's hybrid.
Okay.
All right, I don't want to belabor this, it's getting late.
I'll talk all night, Peter.
I know you will. And I will too, but we
know.
owe it to everybody else here, so let's continue.
The last part of our presentation is just our future goals and what we're looking at. Again, our 10-year hiring plan, that's consistent with what we present every year. Goal 2 is, and I'll quickly go through these, is our accreditation process. We have actually called for a certification process, and we are looking to get certified this spring. It's been a long process, and I have to thank Amanda and Officer Moriali for their work that's been put into this, and we're finally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. It's really been a thorn to get this done. Goal 3 is to create that co-response. This is an important project, and I think it's an important project for the community, and we really want to try to keep pushing forward with this. Goal 4 is to maintain our training levels, even increase it if we can, stay within the mandates that's required by post and MPTC. Peter and I have had these conversations about the bridge and the cost of this. Effectively, the bridge and the new reform has eliminated reserve officers as we know it. Peter, you brought this up when our delegates came here and explained the cost of the bridge. The $15,000 to $16,000 was just 3 officers to that point. I still have 2 that need to finish this year, and I still am paying that. I have 1 more to finish next year, and I think we'll be good after that. But it's still the incurring cost is not just that minimal that was presented. So those are some of the unfunded mandates that we're stuck with through that. In Goal 5, evaluation process. We've been talking about this for years, and again, every time we start to get to that point, something else comes up and we have to take precedence. But we will work towards that goal of having an evaluation process for the department. With that being said, I want to thank our town manager for her guidance through this process. Also, being a new chief and being a first year full chief, it's nice to have that guidance and have somebody that I can call on a regular basis. I can't thank Amanda enough. When you look at those numbers, our department, the numbers are difficult. When we start looking at budgets and we start looking at fluctuations, when we start looking at 5-year look backs, what is our projections, what is this? Her help has been tremendous, and I can't thank her enough for what's been done. And I appreciate everything she does, and I appreciate everything the town manager has done for us also.
I want to commend you on your presentation tonight. It was super thorough. Your narrative that you sent to us last week was as well, an extremely good overview of the department and capabilities and needs. I would encourage members of the public, I'm sure we can get this posted on the budget documents on the website at some point, and I would encourage members of the public to check it out because it's a really good document and extremely thorough and informative. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for your time. As I've said a couple of times, I've harassed the chief quite a bit over the last several weeks, and he's been
It's okay.
extremely
That's-
patient,
That's what,
and I appreciate it.
I'm glad. Thank you. Any other questions before I turn it over to Chief Sullivan? I kept him up longer than he anticipated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Glad I let you go first.
Wear us out.
Big mistake. Chief Sullivan, I've downloaded your presentation. Do you want me to share it, or do you want to do it, or?
I have, why don't you share it?
Okay.
I'll run it from my laptop so I can see it.
Yeah, I'm just thinking to alleviate the time of you getting on Wi-Fi and
Yeah.
all that jazz.
Hoping my battery isn't died here in the meantime.
Although now I got to find your email. Because I didn't download it. Fire department presentation. Okay, before I share this, Chris, I'm gonna make you, a co-host, Chris, and if you could just keep an eye on if anybody comes in, because it's very difficult for me to admit people if I'm sharing a presentation. All right, I'm not quite sure what I'm looking at this in, but, there we go. All right. I think this is as good as it's gonna get, Chief.
Okay. I say, you need a mirror so I can see what's back there.
Chris, can you verify that you can see this?
I can see it.
All right, thank you. All right,
All right. Good evening. Sorry if I smell a little bit like smoke, came straight
Yeah,
from a fire.
well.
We've been a little busy lately. So for the new members, the people at home, the Lunenburg Fire Department, we're an all-hazards response agency. Not only do we do fire and EMS, do hazardous materials, service calls, technical rescue. Pretty much if it doesn't involve law enforcement, we're probably involved in some way, shape, or form. What the department's made up of, myself as chief, one full-time administrative assistant EMT, 4 career officers, 4 call officers, or on-call officers, 4 career firefighter EMTs, and nominally 34 on-call firefighter and EMTs. The on-call firefighters are people, they get paid an hourly rate. They're not on duty per se, but they get paid when they come in for a call versus the career staff that's in the station. So normally we're staffed with
am I
2 to...
advancing slides?
Whoop,
You need to
yeah.
tell me to advance.
Oh, my bad. I'm sorry. Yes.
Oh, you're not seeing it on the screen?
No,
Okay.
I can't see it.
All right, so personnel,
Staffing. Sorry.
staffing, got it.
I was all set to plug into something
No,
here.
we're good.
So staffing, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have 2 to 3 career firefighter EMTs in the station. Monday through Saturday. Currently, there are 2 shifts with 3 career firefighters, 1 shift with 2 career firefighters, and 1 per diem firefighter. And then myself is available Monday through Friday, when I'm in the station. Sunday, we have 2 per diem firefighters that work the day and the evening shift. They are some of our call firefighters that are specially trained, and they're getting their hourly rate to staff the station. So again, 2 to 3 people in the station at any given time. Plus the call firefighters respond back. Most incidents, we have them come in. There's a few service calls, very minor non-emergency incidents that the duty crew may handle themselves, but we still utilize our call force very heavily. So duties, again, like I had said before, sorry, next slide. I'll
Gotcha.
get this down by the time
I
I'm
got
done.
you.
Again, duties for us, fire suppression. Doesn't seem like it's that big of a job, that part of the job anymore, because EMS is a big chunk of it, but we've had 7 multiple alarm fires in the last 4 months. Just came from one now, so, which has been unusual for us, but we do still get fires. It still does happen. As I said before, hazardous materials response, technical rescue, specialized rescue like water rescue, rescue from heights, and some of the non-glamorous parts of the job like public service and support, fire prevention, safety education, out with the public, with the schools, with the seniors, training, like the police. We don't have quite as much mandated on us as they do, but there's still a lot of training that's involved with our job. And then again, administration and support. Next slide. So just to give a quick breakdown of our call volume for last year, we did a total of 1,883 responses overall, including 962 medical emergencies. The total number of calls was down somewhat, but the EMS calls stayed the same, and we saw a 7% increase in those of the number of people that we actually transported to the hospital. And that, again, I think all of that's probably a reflection of COVID. Some of the service calls, other types of incidents were down a little bit, but the EMS calls stayed the same. And again, it's still a big part of our job, but as I always say, we still do go to fires too. Next slide is just a quick graph of just how our call volume has gone over the last 10 years or so. Building has slowed down a little bit. Again, someday that may pick up again. Because with the next slide, actually, the next slide is just our call volume through the day. The takeaway is we're busy any time of the day or night. Things do slow down at night, but we are steady right through the evening. The next slide, this is one I've been adding in every year just to kind of give an idea of the effects of the new growth in town. This has been both the large multifamily complexes like Emerald Place, Tri-Town, the Whalum Luxury Apartments, and the smaller developments like Riley Road that are more, or Butterfly Lane, places like that that are more single-family homes. And every year, as you can see, the inspections drop off because as they're built out, we're not that active. Fire calls seem to stay about the same, but we've seen a steady increase in EMS calls from those locations, especially the multifamilies. The next slide really just shows it by the project. It's just Emerald Place and Tri-Town are the two busiest ones. But we are, steady with those. The single-family ones, we don't see as much activity out of, but they do keep the ambulance busy. So our proposed budget on the next slide. I'll get this right yet, Pete.
All right, I got you.
So for 2023, the proposed budget includes one additional career firefighter paramedic, which would be year 5 of the staffing plan. It continues paramedic training for some of our people, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. Because again, we anticipate partial paramedic coverage sometime probably in late FY22 if all the stars align properly. And we expect hopefully full coverage by probably mid FY23. The above target requests really didn't have much this year. They were small increases for EMT stipends and EMT recertifications for our on-call EMTs. We've added a few people, and it's just trying to keep pace with that. The next slide just shows where the salary lines and the career firefighter overtime call firefighter salaries have moved over the last few years. Call firefighter salary, that includes the per diem firefighters. That hasn't really changed all that much. We've seemed to have stayed right in that line area. Obviously, the career has increased as we've added a person a year for the last few years, along with the overtime. When I give the town manager figures for that, I always figure in at least a certain amount of overtime in those numbers, because it goes along with the job, unfortunately, or fortunately, but because we need to maintain that staffing in the station.
Is there a time that you are hoping that the call firefighter salaries will start dropping as you kind of approach your 10-year staffing plan?
No,
Or 5,
because
just a 5
I
year.
honestly, even with the current, when we add the 9th position and we have 3 people on all the time, we still need to call firefighters. 3 people was 1 ambulance, or an ambulance and a half, or 1 fire truck.
Okay.
So we needed everybody else to come in.
So the plan is just to have full-time staff in the building Monday through Saturday,
the per diem,
and
the per
then-
diem on Sundays.
and then the per diem on
Right.
Sundays and the on-call for.
So they're
extra.
functioning just the same as the career people.
Got it.
But again, it staffs 1 vehicle.
Right.
And that, which has made a difference, I will say, in these last few fires we've had, having a 3-person truck pull up with an immediate response, getting there, being able to get a hose line in operation, I think it's made a big difference.
Okay.
But it's 3 people. And we need a lot more than that.
Yeah.
So we still rely on all the other people to come in as well.
So when you sent, just to add a little bit more color to that, so somebody like me who knows nothing about firefighting can understand this. When you get a call that there's a fire and there's 3 people in the station, they're getting in 1 engine?
1 truck.
And going?
Right.
Okay.
Because usually 1 person's going to drive, the officer's up front, and 1 person's in the back. To stretch even one of the smaller hand lines, you need at least 2 to be able to move it anywhere into the building. And if we know we've got a fire and that truck stops, hooks up to a fire hydrant, and lays a line into, so they have water, that means there's 1 guy pulling the line by himself.
And so as call firefighters come in, they're coming to the station and they're getting
Picking up the other apparatus.
other stuff.
Yep.
Based on what the first guys find, and they're
Correct.
calling back and saying,
Correct.
bring a tank, bring a.
Yeah, normally the progression would be the ladder truck then the other 2 engines, and then the ambulance after that, is how it normally goes.
And do you bring water to most fire calls?
Each, 2 of the 2 main pumpers carry 1,250 gallons of water apiece with them. The other 2 trucks one carries 500, one carries a little over 700. And if it's outside the hydrant district, we rely on mutual aid for tankers, which is a vehicle we don't have that can carry anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000 gallons of water. And that's all planned out ahead of time.
Okay.
So, even like today, we call for mutual aid right away. Sometimes it takes a little bit while for our extra people to get in, get the apparatus, so we get some of those companies moving. And we do the same for them, too.
Yeah, but there are fire hydrants on Fairview Road.
They're
right?
correct. There was one right down the street, we didn't need it. It was very close, but we didn't need it.
Good.
So, I'm sorry, but I think the next slide was salary line items.
You're up.
Correct. So the budget, again, supports 1 additional firefighter paramedic. That will give us 3 shifts of 3, I say firefighter EMTs, but eventually it'll be a combination of EMTs and firefighter paramedics. The per diem hours will remain at 82 to 96 hours a week. That's staffing 3 people on Sunday, and we're looking at the potential of possibly having a 4th person on the weekends, at least some of the time. As we've looked, that's when we're weakest on having to, call people around. Unfortunately, the years of having everybody hanging out at their home and having a backyard barbecue are kind of long gone. On the weekends, society is much more mobile. There's a lot more people on the move. So that's something we're looking at, that may be a potential option, since we're right now currently operating at 96 hours a week. Yeah. And obviously maintain the call force, too, as well. Next slide. So the question always comes up, even like with the police or with us, with overtime. Our overtime costs, the estimated costs are based on earned time off that the firefighters accumulate. Some, but not all of the sick time. We usually budget for some of it, not all of it. Holidays, and some callback. Because the career people, again, like the call, that are off duty, when the call people come in, we call back the career people too. And because we need them as well, just as much. We need the people to come in and get the other trucks. So there's a fair amount of that as well. And again, staffing is pretty much already at a minimum. We need 2 legally to take the ambulance out and operate that. So we still need to be at the 2 to 3 all the time. Next slide. So our main project goal for the last few years has been paramedic. And just to give you an update on the timeline of where the paramedic training is, back in September of last year, our 3rd career member began paramedic training. In January of 2021, December 2021, January 2022, our first 2 career firefighters were certified as paramedics. One was actually certified back in the fall. The other one obtained his certification right around the beginning of the year. In January, our 4th career member began her paramedic training. We were fortunate she was able to get into an accelerated program that instead of the 19 months of the college program, she'll be done in 9 months. So that's going to put her roughly, mid to late fall, hopefully getting her certification, which will put her in line with the other person as well. So right now, we're working on getting our ducks in a row, so to speak, to line up to get the actual paramedic license. Hopefully sometime between spring to early summer, we'll be operating at least at a partial level, or some of the time at that level. In July, with the 9th position, hopefully we can hire a firefighter paramedic. There could be a potential of a 2nd person with a retirement. Again, paramedics are hard to come by out there. They're in high demand. With the increases in the last collective bargaining agreement, hopefully it will make the job a little more appealing to somebody from outside, that we may be able to attract somebody. But again, that's also why we have money in there for training, if we have to train somebody as well. But my estimation would be mid to late 2022, probably at least by the end of the year, we should be up and running 24/7 at the paramedic level.
And how does the licensing work in with that, Chief? Like,
The licensing, we have to go through the state, we have to update all our procedures. The biggest challenge for us is because we have all brand-new people. We have to work out some agreements that they can be supervised by other paramedics. One of the call people that I'm hiring on shortly as just a call per diem is a veteran paramedic from another community, which is gonna help some, but we're gonna have to work out some agreements, probably with Townsend, with Air, that they'll back our people up for a while, until they've got about 50 calls apiece under their belt.
So does that mean, like, for example, when you and I met a month or two ago, I gave you the example of I was driving down Electric Ave one day and I found myself behind an ambulance that was going to Emerald Place, and watched the ambulance pull into Emerald Place, and then just saw another ambulance pull in from out of town.
Correct.
Behind that ambulance, it was probably a heart attack call or something like that.
Correct, that was a paramedic level ambulance coming from another town. Their paramedic would jump in with us and provide the care in our ambulance.
And so at what point do we not need that second ambulance, I guess is what I'm
Once
getting
we
to.
get all of our own paramedics up and running, then we don't have to do that anymore.
So
So there's
that-
gonna be a transition period where some of the time we'll be doing that, some of the time we may not be doing that. And then as we get, our initial paramedics get experience, get past a certain point, as we bring new people on, they can do that training. So, and there'll be certain days of the week that we may not have a paramedic.
So this
on
isn't
duty.
a certification issue or a licensing issue so much as a individual personnel that are there at any given time.
Yes, it's a combination of both. We can start off providing up to 12 hours a day, and that within 3 years, we have to say we can guarantee 24/7 coverage. I think right now, we're gonna be in a lot shorter window than that. I'd hoped we were gonna be back up and we were gonna be doing this by now, but COVID sort of threw a monkey wrench into that. Fortunately, the paramedic programs are getting back up and running. They can get into the hospitals, they can train. So it's an involved process with the state, because you're administering medications, you're doing a lot of different things. They want to make sure that everybody's squared away.
Should we be thinking about extending the hiring plan to give some more wiggle room, given labor shortages and
I
those
think
kinds
it's a
of
good
things?
question, but I think we need to see where we're at first, right now. I suspect as the building takes off again in town, we're gonna see our call volume go up. Right now, that level seems to be pretty well. The challenge is gonna be the Sundays with the per diems. One of the future slides in here is we're working on something with the personnel board of increasing the rate for the on-call paramedics, to hopefully make that a little bit more attractive, to bring some of them in. That's gonna be the challenge of, again, anything with part-time help,
Yep.
making sure we can cover that day. So, ask me again in a couple of years.
I offered to double the training budget for the police
I-
chief.
I
You
think-
you didn't bite, now you're not
We're
biting.
always taking money, and we could always do, but and we can always use more manpower, but I would always say, I wanna be able to justify it,
Absolutely.
and that.
When we train a paramedic, is there a period of time where if they were to leave us and go to another town, that they would have to like repay that training cost?
Yes, it's prorated, but basically 3 years. They have to pay back some of the cost of the training. After 3 years, they are free and clear, which is all more reason to keep the pay rates up and give them, keep, a lot of motivation for them to keep them here. The people we have now come from our call force, and a lot of them, they're from town, and I like to say they have some skin in the game for our community.
Yeah, no, I understand, just wanted to know the answer to that question.
Oh, yes, there is some method to recoup that. So I think, if no more questions, next slide. So again, the other budget items, we really I didn't submit a lot. In all honesty, the town has taken very good care of us the last few years and filled in a lot of gaps that our budget has had. The total increase, I think, above target was $650 to cover a few additional on-call EMTs. We've had people train. We cover their recertification costs, and they get a stipend if they recertify. And the other thing, not technically a budget item, but again, trying to increase in the salary admin plan rates for the advanced EMTs and for the paramedics. That was approved by the personnel board. That just has to get through town meeting. I didn't ask for any specific increase in the budget, because I think for the most part, we can handle that within the on-call salary for the time being, because it only affects about 9 people. So, next slide. For capital plan, we originally had a replacement chassis for engine 2, our small brush truck. I took it off. In our research, trying to get numbers for this, we couldn't find good numbers. There was, as Chief Gamble said, trying to get a new vehicle is a crapshoot right now. They're far out, if you can even pin anything down. We could not come up with good numbers for an F-450 type chassis, or 350 for this truck, and for some of the add-on equipment for it. So we just decided we would postpone it for a year. Hopefully things have stabilized a little bit, and we'll have a better number. The numbers we were coming up with, they were scientific wild-ass guesses, and I did not want to bring something forward operating under that. So I'm hoping for FY23 we'll have some, or for FY24 we'll have some accurate numbers.
How old is that truck, Chief?
The truck itself is a 1989, so it's older than most of the guys that are driving it now. The body we got in 2011, and the plan was to take the body off of this truck and mount it on a new chassis to save some money. So
Smokey the Bear's still a thing?
That's an old department tradition going back to 1958, that our old brush truck then had a painting of Smokey the Bear on it, and we've carried it along ever since. Some of the kids probably have no idea who he is, but it's a tradition, sort of like the white trucks.
How frequently does that truck get deployed, Chief?
That truck, it goes out a few times a year. In years past, when we've had a busy brush season, it's been out a lot. The last couple of years, we have not had, as last year, we had mold problems. It was so damp.
Yeah.
It does go out on water problems. It carries a couple of portable pumps. If we have to pump out a cellar, it does have the capability of towing. It's not our primary tow vehicle, but it is set up to tow if necessary. And it does go out of town for brush fires too, depending on what they need. Not a high use truck, but again, this is why we were looking at, rather than buying a whole new vehicle, replacing the chassis underneath it. The challenge with that truck is it's getting up there in age, and that it still goes pretty well. It's got some rot issues in the body. We replaced the radiator. That was actually the last time we tried to tow one of the heavy trailers. We had to replace the radiator afterward. We didn't like doing that. And it's just getting up there in age.
Yeah.
When you tell guys you have to pump the gas a couple times because of carburetor, and they kind of go, a what? Like I said, it's older than a lot of people, the people driving it.
And so, obviously, you weren't able to get the chassis estimates. Do you know what the replacement value of that truck is if you were to just buy a new one?
I would bet to replace that truck overall, you're probably, could be upwards of 150,000. I'm spitballing that number a little bit.
Yeah, no,
but
fair enough.
based on the things I've seen, the costs have gone up to do something similar. And there's honestly nothing wrong with the body. The body is basically a farm body type setup with a self-contained skid unit on it. So.
And the work would be done by the town mechanic to do that? Or would we-
Transferring the body would probably be a local company that built that body, is probably who we would do that. And a lot of the other work would be, better off-road tires, possibly increasing the suspension to give it a little more ground clearance, replacing the winch bumper. We could reuse the winch, but the bumper is built for that specific truck. They make kits that all of that stuff comes together and could be put on there, but we couldn't get numbers
Yeah.
for it.
All right.
All right.
Something to keep an eye on, obviously.
Yep.
It's a big deal.
There's a lot of people who want to know when we retire that chassis.
Well, we got a lot of woods in Lunenburg,
Yes, and surprisingly, we have not been active with brush fires, and I can't tell you why, other than maybe, I don't know, kids don't go play with matches anymore, which is a good thing, but I feel like sooner or later that's gonna change. We're gonna get a dry season and we're gonna be out busy again.
These kids are missing out. That was good entertainment in the 80s.
Because Smokey the Bear worked.
Yep, yep.
They prevented forest fire.
Just a little bit on some of our grant funding, on the next slide. State grant, we had a state grant for $19,000 that we received for protective equipment. That's actually ongoing right now, that hopefully we're gonna be able to replace some of our forest firefighting equipment. We had protective clothing. You've seen the firefighting clothing. We've talked about that last year when we were working on replacing that, which I'm also happy to say that shipment just came in yesterday. So we're finally getting some of that in place. The brush gear is a lot lighter. It's not as bulky. It still protects you a little bit, but you're not wearing the bulk. It's designed to go out in the woods. The equipment we're looking at is also, as a secondary function, you can use it for like auto extrication, functions like that. Less wear and tear on the heavy fire gear, and less wear and tear on the firefighters that are wearing it when it's 95 degrees out. So we're in process with that. EMPG grant, which is emergency management preparedness grant from the state for $3,750. We replaced some rescue harnesses for rescue from height. Those have a 10-year lifespan. We're supposed to take them out of service after that, so we're replacing a couple of those. A GPS unit for one of the vehicles for when it responds mutual aid for the dive truck when it goes out of town, and an LED scene light, which is just a portable floodlight. Instead of having to run it off a generator, you can set the light up anywhere. It's extremely bright. We had gotten one with a ladder truck, and we found it's very useful for trying to add a second one.
Do all of our vehicles have GPSs in them?
No, not all of them. The ambulances have to, a couple of the engines. We find where the dive unit is part of a regional response, we end up going all over the county sometimes with that, and it's interesting at 2 o'clock in the morning trying to find your way out in the western part of the district. So right now, there's one that I donated that's kicking around in there, and actually that one's in the ladder truck right now, so.
I guess worst comes to worst, everybody's got a phone nowadays, so they can open up.
The problem I found is trying to use my phone, then I have people calling me since I'm in charge of the dive team, so it's kind of hard to navigate and talk
Yeah,
at
no,
the same
I'm
time.
saying, I'm just thinking of, like,
Yeah.
if somebody doesn't know where
Yep,
Brown Ave is.
yeah.
you know,
It's not so much for in town, it's for going out of town.
Right.
The two fire apparatus are the ones that respond mutual aid have them. The ambulance, it's in the ambulance equipment list.
Okay.
The next slide, also under grants, we received the SAFE and Senior SAFE grants. These are for fire safety education with both our school-age children and senior citizens. We're in the schools, grades K through 3, every year, usually in October, both classroom instruction and using the district's fire safety trailer, which is basically it's a modified RV type camper trailer that's set up to teach kids fire safety. I've got a mock-up of a kitchen, a bedroom. It can generate fake smoke, teach them how to crawl under smoke. We bring that down every year and teach on those at those levels. We do education seminars for the seniors. We still have the smoke detector project and the Sand for Seniors that we have in conjunction with the senior center, that one of our people will take sand out for their walkways. If they're mobility impaired, they can't get out. And at the same time, one of the fire prevention people will go in, check their home, look for safety hazards. And if they don't have smoke detectors, we have a stock of them that we can put up smoke detectors for them. Because unfortunately, we're still finding a lot of homes that we're going into that have no working smoke detectors. Or they have ones that were obsolete 30 years ago and nobody ever thinks about them. So it's been definitely a worthwhile project. Captain Reese has spearheaded that for many years along with Sue from the senior center, and it definitely made a big difference out there in the community. Next slide, just to run down again what we run for a rolling stock for apparatus. We run 3 engines or pumpers. They carry the water, they carry the hose. One of them also doubles as our heavy rescue unit. It carries the jaws of life, it carries airbags, extrication and rescue equipment. We have the ladder truck, 2 brush trucks. We talked about one, we also have a larger one. 2 ambulances. The water rescue unit, which is a retired ambulance, it's a 1998 unit, that when we took one of the ambulances out of service, that tows our boat. It carries water rescue equipment, it has scuba equipment, inflatable rescue raft for ice rescues, and then we have the 3 support vehicles, two SUVs and the pickup truck. The pickup is a 1-ton. That's our prime mover for towing trailers. It's also set up with a 9-foot V-plow that we plow our own parking lot. Plus, if the ambulance or fire apparatus has to get up a driveway in a snowstorm, we can punch out the driveway, get up through there, and get in there fairly quickly. And on the next slide, just, again, planned replacement cycles. We figure 20 years on the large engines or pumpers. The ladder truck, we usually estimate 25 years. The forestry unit's 30 years. The ambulance is 10, and the support vehicle's 10. Again, our vehicles aren't on the road like the police cruisers. They don't rack up the mileage, so we can get a little bit longer time out of them. And again, the big trucks, they're a big investment, but they usually last. Usually at about the 20-year mark, we're spending more and more money on maintenance at that point. And for us, it's not only the cost of the maintenance, but it's the downtime that the truck's not available. We're fortunate right now, three of our main apparatus are, 2 are only a couple of years old, and 1's only 5 years old. The other one is 12, 13, 14 at this point, and that. But, so we're in good shape there. And that's hopefully, it's cutting down our maintenance costs a little bit because they're new. They still have problems, but they're just under warranty.
What's the cost of an engine these days?
The last truck we purchased was $880,000. So, and that was a twin to the 2015 truck. And they, again, I used to say they go up 5% a year. And with the way supply chain and stuff is now, I wouldn't even want to take a guess at where they're at right now. Hopefully that stabilizes out somewhere along the way. Ambulances seem to go up about 8 to 10% a year. So,
You gotta keep funding that stabilization fund.
yep. The next one's not due for a few years yet, but she's out there, you know. So next slide, the impact of the budget as recommended. 1 additional full-time person, again, moves towards 3 shifts of 3. It helps us implement full paramedic coverage by mid-FY '23. And the above target funding, the next to the last slide, just adds a nominal amount to cover additional on-call EMTs that we've added to the roster. People have gone and gotten their EMT, plus a couple of per diems. And that is it.
Is this a real photo in Lunenburg?
Actually, yes, it was. It was several years ago, but that was a fire on Mulpus Road.
All right. Questions for Chief Sullivan?
Yeah, I have one question. Do you have equipment that would, facilitate any kind of response on like conservation land?
That would be probably the brush trucks. We have one ATV. It's a small single-seat ATV that we've had for many years. We could also always work with the police with their UTV. In fact, their UTV is set up with a first aid kit and it has a Stokes basket or a metal stretcher for carrying somebody out that we put on it for them. We've trained with them on that. Some of our people know how to operate it and that. So if we have to get out there, that would be something that we use. Our ATV has a small water tank that we can add onto it. It's only 25 gallons, but we can take that out there too. But again, we have that one smaller brush truck, and then there's a larger truck that if we had a significant fire, we'd be out there. It's weird talking to voice from above here.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No. So, obviously last year and in the fall, we had a pretty rigorous discussion around the collective bargaining agreement and ability to recruit and retain qualified firefighters and paramedics. You briefly touched upon that, but I just ask you to expand on that a little bit. You know, or do you feel where we are where we need to be at this point?
We've moved up a little bit in the pay scale. It
Yep.
puts us up more in the middle, around there. We're still in the 48-hour week. That wasn't something that was able to get worked out in the budget, which, again, most towns are operating on a 42-hour week. Doesn't seem like much, but it's a difference in how you cover the week and that. So that's why we cover 6 days with the career staff versus 7. That's something that helps a little bit. The pay scale has come up, especially for the paramedics, so hopefully that's going to help to recruit and retain. We're moving up.
Well, and a credit to you and the town manager for, not only identifying the problem, which is easy to do, but come up with a solution to address the problem over a period of time. And I think that, we're seeing the results now. So, well done.
I think we've seen it on ambulance calls, and we've certainly seen it on fire calls recently, having that staff there. It's making a difference.
Good. Anyone else? All right, thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Chief. All right. 9:15, right on time. Madam Town Manager, are there any updates on annual town meeting warrant articles? No is a satisfactory answer. We received 2. Okay. Minutes. There are 2 sets of minutes in the shared file, which I do not have open right now because I've got a ton of other stuff open.
February 17th and 24th.
Okay. Has everybody had a chance to read those minutes?
Yes.
I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from February 17th and 24th.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Waters, a second from Mr. Simeoni. Any discussion? Roll call vote. Mr. Menard,
Aye.
Mr. Waters,
Yes.
Mr. Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Simeoni,
Aye.
and a yes for myself. That is unanimous. Minutes are approved. Committee reports. Are there any committee reports?
No.
The school committee met. I made it through most of it.
Good for you.
There wasn't really much to report from it, though. It was just a standard kind of a, yeah, there wasn't really much to report.
So I was in and out, running back and forth to practices last night. I did catch something about the school bus contract and approval of a bid or acceptance of a bid. I don't know if there's additional negotiating to do, but I didn't catch the details.
That might have been the part that I walked away from.
Okay, all right.
It was another long one.
Well, perhaps we can get some
I'll check it out. I'll go back through the
clarification
video.
on that. And, yeah, that'll be good, because that's obviously a major expense line
Yeah.
that we need to keep an eye on. And I was in and out and did not get the details, so. Okay, and we don't have Mr. Passio, so what fun is that? Is there any public comment? Let me reopen my Zoom. Seeing none. Items for future meetings. So we have added the Board of Health to the March 24th plan, which ought to be now a very busy evening. And I guess we'll table the questions about capital planning until next week when we hear an update from the town manager on the capital plan, and we can have a discussion about whether it's worth opening that discussion further.
Is the discussion about the school and the heat?
Well, there's a lot to be discussed on the capital plan, but my expectation is that the town manager is going to come forth with an update or revisions to the proposed capital plan. with that, we may decide that we want to either request commentary from the capital planning committee or actually meet with them before we make a recommendation at the end of the month. So the good news is that today is the 3rd of March. We will get that update from the town manager on the 10th, and that still gives us 3 weeks to react before the public hearing and vote for recommendation. So if things were delayed another week, I would be nervous, but I think at this point, we're close to being on track.
Is there a moneyed article related to the primary school tear down, rebuild, make into a park?
Madam, so the comment from the town manager is it's on the selectmen's agenda for discussion, so it doesn't exist yet, but I'm assuming it may.
All right, so we have 3 meetings between now and public hearing to
Yes.
have that.
Yep. So the select board is meeting on Tuesday, the 8th, I assume? And that will be on their agenda for next week? Okay. So we'll have an update on that on the 10th, and we can
No.
visit that. The only other thing I wanted to add, and I will add an agenda item for probably the week after next, the 17th. We're going to need to put our letter in the warrant, which I assume we will need to have done on the 31st or shortly thereafter. I'm not sure exactly what the print date is, but it can't be too far. I think the selectmen are voting their recommendations on the 5th, so it's got to be pretty close to the 6th, right? Yeah, so 4th, 5th, 6th, somewhere in there. Chris, are you interested in doing an initial draft on that?
I don't know if I have the bandwidth to do the draft this year.
Okay. So I will make that an agenda item for next week, and we can draw straws on who writes the initial draft. I'm okay with picking that up. I have bandwidth issues myself, but it's something that we have to get done, and we have to circulate it, ideally with, amongst ourselves, probably no later than the 17th, to give us a couple of weeks to react. And ideally, we can bless that on the 31st or via email slightly thereafter. So,
If we are to have the capital planning committee meet with us, I see the 17th and the 24th as both extremely busy days.
yeah, I mean, it is what it is. We can revisit this next week, and we can potentially move some stuff. Another potential option is if there is anything contentious or worthy of deeper discussion, we can also have that on the 31st. So, typically, the public hearing is not a 2-hour event. So, the voting on the recommendations does take some time, but we could probably afford a half an hour to 45 minutes that evening if need be. Board of Health is coming the 24th. Tentatively for 8:30 PM, so they would be last on the docket that night. Okay. Any other comments, concerns, ideas? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion from Mr. Waters, a second from Mr. Simeoni. All in favor, Mr. Menard,
Aye.
Mr. Waters.
Aye.
Mr. Gray.
Aye.
Mr. Simeoni.
Aye.
And an aye for myself. Good evening, everybody. We will see you all next week.
Good night.
Good
Aye.
night.